So the big focus of COP26 today is transport. And we're talking now about electric cars and when and how we here could get the right system, the right infrastructure, particularly the right charging systems and infrastructure to make it possible for everyone here, for every motorist here, to move away from petrol and diesel and into electric. The Infrastructure Minister, Nicola Mallon, is in Glasgow for COP26 today, and she's announced a new electric vehicle or EV infrastructure task force for Northern Ireland. I caught up with the Minister this morning.
That's about bringing people with the expertise and with the lived experience. So the motor industry, users of electric vehicles, business sector and government departments. And their task is to develop a very clear action plan so that we can deliver a modern, reliable public charging infrastructure network that can give confidence to users so that people, many, many more people, can make that switch.
Why is Northern Ireland lagging behind the rest of the UK in terms of charging infrastructure? I've seen some stats suggesting we're the worst region of the UK in that area.
When you speak to people who want to use electric vehicles and those who have them, they will say that two of the biggest challenges is around range anxiety. So it's the provision of e-charging infrastructure. And there's also an issue around affordability as well. I've been engaging with the motor industry and the affordability issue will resolve itself as many more vehicles are manufactured. And then we'll start to see electric cars in the second-hand market as well, which isn't really the case here in Northern Ireland. But for me, this is about pushing on ahead. I've changed planning rules so that we can make it much easier to install infrastructure, EV infrastructure, charging points. And I've also provided match funding to councils as well through my Blue-Green Infrastructure Fund. So for me, we need to just drive on ahead here. We are starting from a very low base, but that just means that we need to accelerate this even more.
That Blue-Green Fund, what is that, about £20 million a year?
Yeah, so I established that last year, William, and it's Blue-Green Infrastructure, and it's about encouraging councils and communities to change their behaviour. So through that, we've seen funding for greenways, for active travel, so footways, cycleways as well. And I also recently launched the Living with Places grant. So that's grants from £1,000 to £10,000 for local communities who want to provide rain gardens, allotments in their community. So for me, it's about affecting change at the government level, working with the private sector as well, working to support citizens and our local communities also. How
come last year $7 million was left unspent in that fund?
Because we wrote out to all of the councils, and I think that many councils were not in the position that they would have liked to have been to be able to draw down the funding. The funding that I have in my department is for capital money, so essentially it's to build things, if you like, William. And so many of the councils just weren't in a position where their greenway proposals had been developed to the point where we could begin building. What we're now starting to see is that ramp up. So I'm confident that this £20 million this year will be spent. And actually, I would like to see further increases in funding because I'm encouraging the councils to work up their proposals so that we can work with them to provide many more cycle paths, walkways, allotments, community gardens, and of course, critical to all of that is around decarbonising transport. So it's investing in zero emission buses, investing in our rail network, and also investing in improving our e-charging infrastructure too.
Minister, how many EV charging points do we have in Northern Ireland right now?
I don't have a figure off the top of my head, William. ESB is the owner and the operator of the e-charging infrastructure, but I do know that we don't have enough. And I do know that in many, many cases, a lot of the points aren't working, which is why I'm pleased that ESB has been working hard to upgrade and retrofit. So it's completed phase 1 of that. It's now rolling out phase 2 of that upgrade.
2023 is very important, that ban in the manufacturing of new cars, which make use of the old combustion engine. So we've got less than 100 months to really get ready for that.
Yes, and it's a big challenge, but it's doable. And so it's all shoulders to the wheel. I always say this because I believe it, William, that we rallied as a society and as a government and we changed our behaviour radically because we wanted to stand together against the COVID crisis. We are in the midst of a climate crisis. And we absolutely need to act with the same sense of urgency.
On the bigger picture, while you're at COP26, getting a sense of things nationally, internationally, globally, how optimistic are you on transport?
I think there's huge opportunities in transport. I mean, Northern Ireland can be a real leader on this. As I've said, we're leading the way in terms of zero emissions in bus fleets. We also, myself and Minister Eamon Ryan in the South, have launched the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review. That's the first time that we have looked since partition at transport and rail connectivity across the island. And there's huge opportunities for rail in the area of freight, for example. And of course, as well as benefiting the environment, William, this investment also brings employment and economic benefits to Northern Ireland. But because, of course, local company Wrightbus is building the buses. So there's huge opportunities to be gained here by Northern Ireland. And I think we can show the way.
You're sounding very positive and very optimistic, because I hear a lot of the climate change campaigners already dissing COP26 and saying this is a PR exercise. You've got the report yesterday suggesting if we take the commitments that have been made so far, by the end of this century, we're talking about 2.4 degrees, not 1.5 degrees in terms of global heating. That doesn't sound like a very positive picture.
Well, I am optimistic and I'm not naive either. And I completely understand people's cynicism because they've heard the talk for a very long time. That's why my view is just judge politicians by their actions on this, judge ministers by their action, judge governments by their action as well. And I think in Northern Ireland, we do recognise we're in the midst of a climate crisis. It's a view. There's differences, okay, in terms of the two climate change bills going through the Assembly presently, but I don't think there's a single party who doesn't recognise the importance of this. So it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is and to just be focused on actually getting things done to tackle a climate emergency. The science is there, the evidence is there. We know what we have to do. We just need to get on with it.
So that's the Infrastructure Minister, Nicola Mallon, speaking to me today. What is your experience of electric cars and indeed the charging points that are available, that are necessary to keep them on the road? Are you as optimistic as the Minister that we will be able to transform our transport towards carbon neutrality within a very few number of years? And when it comes to what car we drive, do you think electric cars are appealing, even though you think it's the right thing to do or maybe the right thing to do? Do they appeal to you? And if not, why not? Lots of questions. 03030 80 55 55. Mark McCall is with us, co-founder of the Electric Vehicle Association in Northern Ireland. That's a not-for-profit community organisation. And Maria McCarthy is a motoring journalist. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you with us. Mark, on that question that the Minister there didn't have the numbers at hand, how many charging points we actually have across Northern Ireland. Do you want to have a stab at that?
Hi, good afternoon, William. Yeah, sure. We have 320 AC chargers in Northern Ireland. That's on the ESB network. That's 160 sites with dual-headed chargers.
So that's not a lot. That's not a lot.
It's not a lot, no. But on top of that, we have 17 rapid chargers from ESB, which is possibly the more important number, because the rapid chargers are the ones that we really need. If we're driving today from Belfast to Fermanagh, and we need to get back home again, and we need that fast 20-minute charge, the rapids really are the ones that most people are looking for. John
and Yuri says, all this hype about electric vehicles, is there any truth in the claim that the batteries cannot be recycled?
No, so batteries are, there's an awful lot of misinformation around this. Batteries can be recycled. Batteries can have a second life, first of all, in storage. And batteries will be recycled, and it will be incumbent upon the manufacturers to do that, because that is going to be their best resource for manufacturing. We're in a spike of mining probably at the moment, to produce these batteries. But it'll become circular after that. One of the studies that we looked at recently said that compared to fossil fuel car, which will go through a oil barrel stacked 25 stories high of fossil fuel during its lifetime, an EV will, by the time it's recycled, will have used about a football size worth of resources. About 30 kilograms of resources. So there's an enormous difference.
This text doesn't have a name on it, but it says that there are over 4,000 people in Mahara and it only has 2 charging points. Electric will never take off if a town of 4,000 people has 2 charging points. It's just laughable. In the future, how do you envisage that this would work? Would we go to charging points in the way that we go to petrol stations right now, or will we all increasingly have them at home?
Well, most of our members, I would say, have them at home. And that's probably the only way to have an EV, unfortunately, in Northern Ireland at the moment, because the public charging network is so poor. If we look at the figures for those rapid chargers in particular, a fair judge across the whole of the UK is rapid chargers per 100,000 of population. Scotland is 12.5. Northern Ireland has got 1.1. The GB average is around 7.7. So, we're 1/7 the GB average for rapid chargers per 100,000 population. So clearly there's massive work here to do. Even the targets for 2025, I think, say we should be fitting something like 20 new chargers a month at the moment. But our network is shrinking currently instead of growing. It's really disappointing. We have a couple of good news stories. There's the Faster project, which is some EU money. And that's going to bring 20 plus new rapid chargers to Northern Ireland by May 2023. And then we had the EasyGo's announcement a couple of weeks ago, and they're talking about between 50 and 70 new rapid chargers in Northern Ireland. So these are good news stories, but they're months and years away rather than today.
Not much use if you live on the 10th floor of an apartment building.
No, absolutely. And we need to, there's approximately a third of housing in Northern Ireland that does not have off-street parking. Yeah. So that is a major issue.
So we're not just talking about charging, we're talking about a revolution in the way we approach our lives when we change away from the focus on the internal combustion engine, aren't we? Maria, this text from Derry, from Patrick in Derry, really captures the thoughts of a lot of people. In addition to what the Minister has described as range anxiety, that fear that you'll run out of a charge when you're making a longer journey, I think the number one issue for people is the price. Patrick says the problem for ordinary people in relation to electric cars is the cost. Where are ordinary people supposed to get the money from?
I think that's a very valid point. Electric cars at the moment are more expensive than regular vehicles, but one really good thing that's happening is that more used electric vehicles are coming onto the market, because lots of people, myself included, I don't buy new cars. I buy like knackered old bangers. And although you can't get an EV for like £500 or something, I had dreadful tendency at one point of just buying cars that you'd sort of see parked in a supermarket car park. They're like a handwritten piece of paper in the window saying £500 or nearest offer, and you can't get an EV for that. But there are now second-hand Nissan Leafs on the market for like £5,000. So I think they are becoming more affordable.
What about the carbon footprint of getting the Nissan here?
It's far better than we're told. I mean, it's like basically the actual building the car is like the same as building an EV or whatever. Same as building a normal petrol or diesel car. And a lot of the focus has been on the batteries. But as I say, there's an awful lot of misinformation about that. The batteries can be recycled. And also EVs can potentially go on for longer because engines wear out. Mm-hmm. But with the EV, the actual sort of shell of the car, you can just keep that going.
Well, what about the battery? Does it not run out? Do you not have to replace it after a while?
They last much longer. When I first started doing these sorts of interviews, they were thinking that batteries would last about sort of 7 to 8 years. Now they're thinking it's more like 20 for the whole life cycle. Because even after it sort of stops being effective in the car, you can still use it in sort of other means, like in industry, as sort of heating pack containers, to sort of harvest electricity for other functions.
John Baird is on the line. John runs a business outside Ballymena installing car chargers. How are you doing, John?
I'm good, William. Thank you for having me.
So is this installing privately in people's homes, basically?
So yes, we install domestic electric vehicle chargers, but we also would install quite a lot of commercial electric vehicle chargers as well.
Tell us about the kind of private driveway installation. What kind of money are we talking about?
So your prices would start in around £550, and that's availing of the OLEV grant. The OLEV grant's due to finish in March next year, so that price will go up from then. So it'd be really nice to see the Minister looking at that side of it too.
And I say private driveway because you need a driveway.
You do, yes.
You have a problem with on-street parking if you're going to do an installation. You can't do it, can you?
You can't do it. You get into all the legalities of cables running across footpaths, that kind of thing. So that's where the sticking point is there.
Is there much uptake on all of this, John?
Yeah, we're busier than ever. Really, and business is good for domestic and commercial. So we've been installing them since 2013, and we've seen the change. Definitely, the shift in people's attitudes towards electric vehicles has come on leaps and bounds.
First question in on you, John. Are there any grants?
For the purchase or for the install of the charger?
I guess either, really. I'm not sure, but people are wondering if there's subsidies or grants that you can get if you want to fit these.
Yeah, well, there is a grant, as I said, that finishes in March next year, so that's a short time to run.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Text to...
Can I just chip
Go ahead,
in
Maria.
about the charging issue? Yeah. Basically, there's this thing that's taking off, which might be of interest, which is called community charging. And what that's about is, let's say if you've got a driveway and you've got an electric charger on your driveway. I live over the road. I'm in a flat. I can rent your charger through an app. And what happens is the app sorts out the matchmaking. It lets us know that we're interested in each other, and it handles all the bookings and payments, so you don't have to talk about money or anything. And then what happens is that I get to run an EV without being reliant on public chargers, and you get to make an extra little bit of money because you can charge a little bit extra for the electricity. And that's, being looked at now by government as, one of the ways that we can increase the number of chargers that are available. Because, in terms of public chargers, it's great to have them and it's great to have more of them. But it's been acknowledged that sort of let's say if you live in a little hamlet or something, it's actually going to be quite expensive and perhaps not very worthwhile economically for a company to install one there because, how much use is it going to get? But if on the other hand, in that hamlet, you've got, say, some people living in a terraced house and then one person with a driveway, then, that might be a way that somebody might sort of think, do you know what? I'll help out my neighbours. I'll let them, give them an option for transitioning to electric and I can make a bit of money as well.
Yeah. Simon Ballymena here says...
put that option out there.
Simon Ballymena here says electric cars are going to be the biggest flop in history. It's time for the carbon zero extremists to admit failure. Oh, go back and read. Look at those old pictures of the first cars and people saying, you need roads for them. We don't have roads. The horse and trap manufacturers saying it'll never take on. People walking with a red flag in front of the car, Maria, back in the day. I'm sure every new technology faces that criticism.
It does, doesn't it? And I think when people are sort of doubtful about electric cars, basically in the moment, car dealerships are just desperate to get you into an electric car. So really, whether you're right at the moment right now when you actually want to buy one or not, one thing that could be really useful is just go and take one for a test drive. Learn a bit more about them because, then at least you'll have an informed decision, as it were. Yeah. And if you still don't like it, then you just don't. But I think everybody should, take one for a spin because they are very, nice to drive. They're quiet, they're smooth. It's quite a relaxing drive.
Got a question for you, Mark. Unnamed but anonymous texter says, what is the percentage of the electric charging points coming from solar and wind power?
Well, Northern Ireland, back in 2010, we had less than 10% of renewables here generation. As of today, it's around 50%. I think our last coal power station is due to be turned off in 2023. And the new energy strategy, which is due out in the next few weeks, we hope we'll have a target of 70 to 80% renewables by 2030. So, your car's on 50% renewables today, and it just gets cleaner and cleaner every year.
Is it zero emissions from the charging? Is another version of that same question, I guess.
I guess, many people will charge at night as well. And in Northern Ireland, we actually have too much renewable energy at night. In 2020, we dumped enough renewable energy to power 140,000 homes for a year. So, practically all EVs, I would say, that are charged at night are running on wind power.
Liam is in Draperstown. Hi, Liam.
Oh, William, I think the technology exists for a car to be self-energizing, but there would be no money to be made. You look at solar panels, you look at horizontal wind turbines and that there, you're driving and you're generating energy there, the wind, and you could have a small hydrogen engine in your car just for charging the battery there. There would be no emissions. Hydrogen is a very popular energy source throughout the world, and it has got very low emissions in it. But I think the technology exists for a car to be self-energizing, but there'd be no money to be made. So they're not interested in pursuing that, going down that path.
Thank you very much. I mean, certainly I've seen some documentaries, for what it's worth, about self-powered cars, the science projects that are going on, exploring all those different options. But the question is scale and transforming the world away from the internal combustion engine at speed, because we are facing climate deadlines, and we are where we are. Thank you for that question, Liam. Interesting one. Gerald is there too. He has a question or comment. He says, on e-vehicles, I am a visually impaired person. Oh, Gerald's on the line. Excuse me, Gerald. Welcome.
Welcome, William. Good afternoon to you.
Hi. Go ahead and make your point.
Yes, the point I have is I'm actually visually impaired. I'm registered blind. Standardly, at the moment that the buses make a noise, and you can judge time, speed, and distance coming towards you. But if they go ahead with these electric buses, how can I stand waiting for a bus? I can't judge whether the bus is going to come to me or not, because I'm blind. I can't hear the engine. Mm-hmm. If I cross a puffin crossing only gives me 4 seconds. And on 65 occasions, I've almost been knocked down and killed by drivers who have not allowed, despite me being on the crossing, and I should be allowed to cross the whole crossing. They're revving their engines, they're pumping their horns, they're shouting obscenities. I can hear the engine, of course, and they'll just shoot through, leaving me stuck in the middle of the road for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I can't hear that if they are electric vehicles.
Now, Gerald, I get your point entirely, Gerald, but the reality is we're going in this direction. We need to, don't we, in terms of our commitment to climate, the climate response.
I understand.
So could there be new technologies that would, in your situation, that would be helpful to you with alerts while you're waiting for a bus, for example?
I don't know whether there would be or not. I'm not sort of into technology, but I'm sure that that there's a sound that you can flick on a car when you turn the thing on. You can flick it to make a sound.
Yeah.
It does emit a small amount of carbon. TransLink, I was trying to speak to Chris Conway, but didn't get in because of the time limitations. And they got back to me and said, look, we will switch the sound on for people like you, so that will be on, and that will be permanent, so that will be okay. But what about cars? I mean, if I'm knocked down by a car with an ordinary engine, depending on whether I survive or not, you can argue over who was the faulty part, the party at fault. How can I know if I was knocked down by a car? I'm disabled. I get knocked down. And they said, well, he should have seen, an ordinary person with sight would have seen the car, should have got out of the way. How can insurance is going to be impacted by that, especially if that kind of thing. And
Gerald?
So we need mitigations for safety's sake for disabled people and pensioners.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. Mitigations are absolutely central. I'm just thinking of those crossings when you press the button and we have sound systems that are there to help people who are visually impaired or blind. Maybe there's technology that can come along with electric cars that might be helpful too. Mark is in Lurgan. Hello, Mark.
Oh, hi, William. Good afternoon.
Welcome. Good afternoon.
It's a pet one of mine, I have to say.
It's a pet hate of yours?
Not necessarily. I think horses for courses at times. These electric cars, one, they're very, very expensive compared to the standard car. Secondly, we don't know what the lifespan of these vehicles is compared to an ordinary car yet, because it's too early. Mm-hmm. But thirdly, the big thing is the range. If you're a businessman and you want to travel any serious distance, these things just will not do it. You have to stop halfway and start and charge up, continue your journey, see them on the way back again. That's no good.
Well, let me put you on to Mark McCall there. Is that true, Mark, in terms of the business needs, the business community? Electric's just not going to work for you?
Well, William, I drove to Cork from Lisburn over the summer, and I had a couple of stops, maybe 15 minutes and 20 minutes, and I needed a stop then, to be honest. We stopped for coffee and a stop for lunch. So definitely charging is part of that, but fast charging, these rapid charges that we're looking for, are part of the solution here. And
how quickly can you charge on the road in a rapid charger?
Well, this is part of the problem. In Northern Ireland, the fastest charger we have here at the moment is 50 kilowatts. There are 300 kilowatt
So how long will that
chargers
take
now.
to charge?
So in a small battery car, something like a Nissan Leaf, you can go from 0 to 80% in around 25 minutes. Right. But as battery sizes have grown, we've cars now with 4 times the size of that battery. Our charging speeds haven't grown at 4 times.
Well, see, Mark has an important point there about larger vehicles and the commercial sector. We need to get that rapid charging thing. These are all new technological questions for us, challenges. We're going to have to make it work, aren't we? We're going to have to make it work. Mark, thank you very much. Mark and Lurkin. Mark McCall from Electric Vehicle Association, EVA NI, and the motoring journalist Maria McCarthy. When we come back, we'll be talking about the legacy of Austin Currie. It's 1 o'clock.